Work. For decades, we've been told that in order to be successful, we have to grind harder, hustle more, sacrifice today for some distant tomorrow. But what if that's all wrong? If we want to change work culture, then we also have to change how we think about work, because how we think impacts how we feel and ultimately how we do it. So, if we want to change how we work, we also have to change how we think. As a company culture coach, I've worked with startups and small businesses all wanting to evolve, establish, or develop their company culture in some capacity. And over the years, the one thing that I've continued to see when they think about their evolutions is that they don't actually think about changing their mindset, the one thing that drives our rituals, habits, and behaviours. Because what they're focused in on too often is the practices or the system or the structure. But underlying all of that is our mindset. Of course, to change any mindset, we first of all have to become aware of what these beliefs are. To begin with, I want to bring our awareness to some of these toxic workplace narratives that currently exist in our wider culture, in our society. The norms, expectations, assumptions, the beliefs that have been ingrained in us from such a young age. And I'm talking about from when we're in education all the way through to our early career. Because as we start to want to make changes, we're going to rub up against these beliefs. And they're not only going to cause some internal tension within ourselves, they're also going to cause tension when we try to change workplace cultures or organizational structures. And I am certainly familiar with this conditioning because as I've gone through my work myself, I've noticed narratives, beliefs, ways of working that have been ingrained in me for such a long time that only through practice have I realised how damaging these have been to my own well-being and how I show up at work. So I want to kind of combine this with both some personal stories and also I want to kind of reframe how we might look to change workplace culture through how we think about things. So let's bring to the surface some of these outdated mindsets that hold us back not only individually, but also on an organizational level. And the first area I want to bring to the surface is success. Because for years, we have been told that in order to be successful, you have to hustle nonstop, climb the corporate ladder, sacrifice everything, your health and well-being, your friends and family, your dreams, in order to put work first. Sound familiar? These mindsets aren't just outdated, they're extremely damaging. We have made overwork and burnout badges of honor, even though the studies show that overworking decreases our efficiency, our creativity, and even leads to a lower life expectancy. Success is just a checklist to be completed. And I don't know about you, but this all sounds not only exhausting, but also completely soul-destroying. Is this all we're really waking up to? I've had a number of experiences where I have physically felt the repercussions of the conditioning that I have had over my education, over my early career, because of these narratives of what was expected of me to be a good worker. For example, when I became freelance, self-employed, however you want to label it, I was enjoying a morning meditation one day. And I was sat there enjoying my meditation and I could really feel this sense of guilt kind of rumbling in my body, this kind of wash of guilt. And the thought narratives that were happening in my mind were things like, well, have you got time to meditate? Should you be meditating? Shouldn't you be doing this? Lots of shaming language was coming up. And when I observed these thoughts and observed this feeling, what it all boiled down to was that over years of my early career, I was told that if I wasn't at my desk by 9 o'clock, I wasn't being productive. I wasn't being effective. even though time and time again, we all know that the hours you work does not matter. It's what you do in those hours that actually matters. But I had been told over and over and over again in my career, be at your desk for 9 o'clock, be at your desk for 9 o'clock. I even went to one interview when I was in my 20s where the person interviewing said to me, if you're not at your desk by 8:30, we're gonna have a problem. So for absolutely decades of my life, I had been told that this is how work has to be. You have to work 9 to 5 in order to be effective, and you have to work over that amount of time if you really want to be successful. And this was drilled into me. And so when I was enjoying my meditation, I couldn't enjoy it because I had this mindset holding me back. Even though I know as a culture coach that this is completely not the mindset to have around how we are actually effective. But I just wanted to share that example that even most of us who practice this type of work are still battling some of those outdated workplace demons. And the reality is, all of these mindsets influence how we feel and how we behave. It is the foundation of any kind of change. So when, as a culture coach, I go into organizations and they want to change something and make something radically different, the place they so often forget is how people think and feel about that thing in the first place. Because let's say we're going to go in there and create more decentralized management structures. We're going to create a flatter hierarchy. Well, that isn't going to change hugely if the mindset of people is still in that competitive space. Because culture doesn't just exist in a vacuum. It's shaped by how we think, and that is shaped by our beliefs, societal expectations, and norms. Let's plant this in some examples. If we believe that success only comes from working long hours, we will praise burnout and overwork. If we believe that being individualistic and competitive will help us get the next rung on that corporate ladder, we won't collaborate with our colleagues. And if we believe that change is risky, we'll cling to outdated models no matter how broken they are. But there's good news and there's tough news. We can unlearn some of these limiting beliefs and mindsets that we have around work that hold us back and restrict us. And we can relearn many possibilities of a way forward. This is not always comfortable work. In fact, it's very often uncomfortable work because we begin to challenge our assumptions about how the world works and also our perceptions of ourselves. So I'm not saying that this is easy work. I'm just saying that when it comes to culture, we also have to consider the underlying influence that mindsets and beliefs are having on everything we're doing. In my opinion, evolving or changing any kind of work culture starts with challenging the assumptions and mindsets that we already have. And here's a few tips on how we can do that. The first one is we have to stop being so focused on being busy and productive and focus more on impact. It's not about the hours spent, it's about what we can create together. The second is getting comfortable with flexibility, not being wed to any rigid schedules or ways of working, whether that is just predominantly ditching the 9 to 5 to begin with. How can we better work together that is more flexible and adaptable to our needs as human beings? And the third one, in my opinion, is redefining what success means to each of us. Throwing out that corporate checklist and climbing the ladder and considering what it means to have real, meaningful work. When we change how we think about work, we don't just reshape our jobs, we reshape our entire outlook on life. So what's one outdated belief about work that you are ready to challenge?